Hey there, this is Jared from cigaradvisor.com bringing you another edition of Fan Mail. This month's question comes from Greg in Reno, Nevada, who wanted to know if you could smoke a cigar backward. So to enlist a little help, I brought on our very own managing editor, John Pulo. Hello, John. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be with you again.
Pleasure to be with you again. And so today, we're going to be smoking the Cohiba Royale Robusto with one caveat. I'm going to be lighting this end, which means that I'm going to need to take the band off to do this. So I guess you could kind of call this fan mail unscripted. You know, it's like one of those reality TV shows. Nobody knows what's going to happen. You know?
All right. So what precipitated the question? I mean, so he was just kind of curious as to wanting to know, what happens or how does it taste or should you, what do you think is going to happen? I guess is my question.
So, well, what I think is going to happen is I think it's going to be kind of like a flip where we're going to have reverse notes. It could very well be that we taste the same thing too, but I know his question came about because he said he lit up a cigar accidentally the wrong way. He wasn't paying attention to what he was doing, lit it up the wrong way, and he ended up tossing it out. And then he talked to his buddy a couple days later, and he said, "Hey, you could have probably kept smoking that. It should have been no problem. It's not going to affect anything." And then, so, he posed the question, sent the message over to us saying, is that true? Can we actually do that? So, I have it on good authority that from different blenders that I've talked to that the leaves go in, in different ways. A lot of people think it's just, you put the leaf in, you bunch it up and you're done. But, sometimes they're going to put the tips in the middle of the leaf, which you're going to get a really strong sensation toward the center, or the sweet spot, as we like to call the cigar. Some of them have them front loaded where the tips are right up front. You're going to get all that strength and that flavor right up front. Some of them even put them in the back. So by the time you get to the end of the cigar, it's like this slow build and it hits that crescendo there. So
the moral of this story then is what you're telling me. And one of the side things we're learning today is that the tips of the leaves, when they use those in the rolling of the cigars, that's where a significant amount of the flavor and intensity is found. If you were looking at the leaf as a whole, it was up at the tip. That's
sure, because that's where all the sunlight is concentrated. It's right at the tip. They're receiving most of the sunlight, most of the oil and the sugar. It's all there. So I don't know particularly where the tip of the leaves are in the cigar. So we're just going to do this one for science. And you can see here, I left a little bit of the shape here. I don't know how well it's coming up. You can definitely see that's not that. This is the foot. This is the head. So you're going to be able to see I'm lighting it from the head of the cigar. So
all right, and this is mine. So mine's already been cut. So essentially what you're asking me to do here is smoke Cohiba for science.
I am. They always say, I wish I had your job. I wish you had your job. I would rather be in your position right now than mine.
I tell you what, bro, if this is the hardest thing I have to do all day, it's been a pretty good day.
Salty. I got a lot of salt right up front, but I don't know if that's because I'm burning the pectin, you know what I mean, from the cap.
Okay. Now, see, my first impression of this, there is a little bit of salt there, but I would say it's actually more of a pronounced earthiness and wood.
Definitely getting wood. I'm definitely getting wood.
Okay.
Like it's so far, like if I had been blindfolded doing this and you didn't tell me any better, I mean, I would probably notice that the head of the cigar, it was cut too far down, but I actually expected this to start like unraveling a little bit on me from smoking it this end, but it's not.
I was going to say how if you're looking at the dimensions in this, I think are like a 48 or 49 ring gauge. So with that wide open end, are you getting a lot of tobacco in your mouth?
I'm actually not. I'm getting a great draw for obvious reasons. I mean, it's wide open. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'll tell you what. Why don't we take a cue from Gary's Now Smoking and meet up in the middle here and see if we're still similarly on the same page. Okay?
Yes.
All right. We'll see you then. So John and I have smoked this a little bit further down, and one thing of note that has popped up is, if you can see it here, the wrapper is starting to come a little bit loose. Now, this is probably something that you would expect in a situation like this, because when you're cutting a cigar below the cap, which I did to properly light it this way, it's going to unravel the wrapper a little bit, and that's normal. So in a situation like this, the wrapper coming undone is normal, but it's actually holding up pretty well. I'm not seeing it like fly away from me or get to the point where I can't smoke it. And more or less, I'm enjoying the cigar. I'm actually really surprised that, I thought it would be almost like a reversal, but it seems like we're getting similar notes, but we haven't talked in the past couple minutes about what notes we're getting. So I'll start off and say I'm getting almost kind of like a bready note right now, like a little bit of like kind of like a grainy flavor. What about you?
Interesting. Okay, I'm sensing some of that same thing too. And I just tapped the ash off, if you might have seen a minute ago, and I'm about this far from the band. This is a little bit on the shorter side of a Robusto. I think it's just under 5 inches.
Right.
But in addition to that bready taste you're sensing, that I'm sensing as well, there's some very noticeable pepper in here, and most of that earth has gone away. But there's a little bit of sweetness that's very hinted at, a little hint of sweetness
finish, right?
in the background.
On the finish?
Yeah, more so on the finish than anything else.
I can't believe it. We're toe to toe on this, man. Like, I'm getting pepper more through the nose, but I really expected this would be like we would have to get to the center to start agreeing, but we're actually agreeing right off the bat. So
that it's like a crossover point happening in two different directions.
Right.
The interesting thing about this is that, we're doing this with a full-size premium cigar, hand-rolled premium cigar. When it comes to something like a cigarillo, right, think a 28 or 30 ring, and you sometimes you'll get them in a tin or something like that, and you'll see they're already cut at both ends. That's a case where a cigarillo, it doesn't matter which end you smoke, because, the cigar is obviously not large enough to really, have leaf placement and all that for it to make a much difference in the conversation as far as, how it's made or something like that. But, a cigarillo, you can smoke either end. So, I think that while a large premium cigar is blended to be enjoyed in a traditional way, you start at the foot, you finish close to the band, it's not that it can't be done. It's just that maybe you're going to start running into some of these things you're talking about, like the wrapper.
Right, and that's the perfect segue for my brass tacks on this, which is if you're not paying attention, it's a beautiful day, you're just sitting outside, and maybe you accidentally took the band off early or something, and you're just paying attention to something else, watching the game or something, and you clip your cigar you clip your cigar, put it in your mouth at the wrong end and light it up. I don't think you necessarily need to throw it out, but then on the other foot, I would not go out of my way to smoke it like this. I mean, if you want to try it, go for it. Try it, see if you like it, but this is not something that there's
it's
no
your cigar, you do what you want with.
Right,
really
exactly. It's your cigar, but I will say there's not nearly as many drawbacks as I thought, but there's certainly no benefit.
What I think this is interesting, and this is, like you said, I don't think this is going to be a very common occurrence. This is,
right.
Like any experienced cigar smoker, it's maybe once, twice, 3 times in a lifetime, if ever.
Right.
This is helpful advice, I think, that somebody can pass along to their friend who is new at cigars, right?
Yeah.
So they took their cigars, they got a bundle of cigars, and they cut them all. They cut them and put them in their humidor, and maybe they cut them a little too deep, and they don't realize when they pull them out which end is which.
Right.
So or they might have they're not very good at cutting cigars because they've only done it a few times and they're just learning, and I cut it too far. Well, you don't have to throw it away. Yes, you can still smoke it. Yes, if turn it around, maybe it won't unravel as badly on you, but it can be done, I think is a nice takeaway from what we've learned today.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is, one thing I noticed is if I rotate the cigar, you'll see these like little points. It's not like your regular canoeing. It's almost on either side, almost 180 degrees exactly. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on here, in my opinion, this is my opinion, is that, you know, when they are rolling a cigar and they're putting the cap on, the tobacco at the head of the cigar gets a little tighter and it's a little bit more compressed, right? And I think because of that, you're going to run into burn issues if you do something like this. But again, it's not a deal breaker, but I wouldn't go out of my way to do it, and that's the best way I can put it. So I want to thank you, John, so much for you know, having the horrible job of smoking a Cohiba for science with me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the cigar.
And as always, you guys can check out our content on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. If there's a social media outlet, we're probably on it. Make sure you click the bell to get notified anytime we have new content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video.